Hey everybody, and welcome to another wonderful episode of Teal Tinted Glasses. This is going to be our draft recap show. It's going to be, we're going to talk about some other stuff going on, obviously, with the Swiftham trades happening. Obviously, Eric Carlson signed. We got to talk about that. Going into the draft, though, we're going to start with the draft, obviously, and then kind of work our way out from there. But I just want to kind of throw out there that this is going to be maybe. I know that from our draft shows in previous years, I think we've been. I think Kevin would agree with this. It's gonna be fair to say that we've probably had more depth of knowledge in previous draft years. This draft year's kind of been a gong show for everyone involved. So maybe not the depth that we're known for, but I mean, I did plenty of homework for this show, and I'm sure Kevin did as well. So I'm sure it's going to be a great show, but if it seems lacking in comparison to previous years, apologies.
You can just blame Doug Wilson Jr. for taking players that are off the board that were like, wait, who?
Yeah, exactly.
It's all on the scouting staff. We are fine, Ian. It's all the scouting staff of the Sharks. No,
absolutely. Yeah. So this is all Doug Wilson's fault as usual. Just getting that out there now. Okay, so
I'm Kevin Lacey, by the way. Hello, Ian.
This is Kevin. Hello. How was your weekend? Other than
draft? Glad to be here. Yeah, I just returned today from lovely Folsom, California, where it was about 100 degrees. So I went from being in the pool to being in my hot, heated, not air-conditioned home. So. Yeah, it's been a rough day, but I'm happy to chat about the draft for as much as I can, and I'm glad that everyone's out there in the YouTube land, in the chat and whatnot. So send in your questions, and we'll try to answer. So, how are you doing, Ian?
I am good. Oh, my volume is far too low. Let me go and correct that quickly. I apologize. It's weird. My mic is right in front of my stupid face.
Yeah. Well, we did. I mean, day one, I'll start off by saying day one was very interesting to me because the lack of trading and just the lack of, I don't know, I felt lack of energy in the draft presentation this year. I think everything was just straightforward, and that was fine. I mean, teams went up there. They didn't thank 1,000 people, including their draft party at random pub in insert city here. But at the same time, I mean, like, for me, the crowd was the best part of the draft in the sense of the crowd reacted to everything in Vancouver. And I thought that was just really cool. I don't know if maybe there was better information given to the fans in attendance than in years past or whatnot. But I mean, like, there were a couple of players, like the Detroit pick, Moritz Seider, right off the bat at 6th overall, surprised some people. But rather than just the general, oh yeah, okay, that's a guy or who or whatever, everyone like reacted like, whoa, wow, didn't see that coming. But like, everyone knew who this guy was and what a big deal. And I'm not necessarily off the board, but just different from the expectation for that Steve Yzerman pick. So I thought that was a cool part of day one. How was since I only saw the American broadcast, how was your broadcast up there in Canada, Ian?
So night one I was working. and day two I was mostly sleeping. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I've done most of my work like post draft, because obviously working the night shift, the draft continues obviously earlier in the next day. So it was basically work and then sleep for me. Unfortunately, that was my draft weekend. But obviously, I did go back and look over like some of the picks in the first round. Like you said, the Detroit one, we got asked about that too. And it was an interesting pick. So, I mean, it wasn't way off the board. I think most people had him projected in the teens. So I think,
I had him 12. So right. It's not like it was like way out there.
Right. This isn't Zach Senyshyn in the first round.
Yeah.
Right. Like, this guy was projected, and and looking at the reports, like, were there better players on the board? Probably, but I mean, I couldn't really find a scouting report that really said anything bad about the guy either.
Yeah, exactly. I think he's got very good upside.
Yeah. So I think it's a case of sometimes the GM, and we'll get into this obviously later with some of the Sharks picks, but I think this is just a pick where the GM kind of, or the scouting staff in this case has an idea of a guy they want, and they think that this guy's gonna be the guy they need to be, to help with the future. Obviously, Detroit's a rebuilding team, and they think that this guy is gonna be, the piece they need. So, could they have traded back for him? Probably.
And
But at
they
the same
looked
time,
into it, from what I understand. They did look into trading back, but it just didn't happen.
right. So I think at that point, if you identify a guy that strongly, and Steve Eiserman's draft record's pretty good.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
I think in some cases when you have a decent draft record like Steve Eiserman does, you identify a guy you want, and if you have to take him a few picks early, great. Now, will I change my tune a little bit when we get to some Sharks picks? Yes, but there's reasons
But we
for
do
this.
we do this every year where we say, "Why did you trade up to get this guy?" And
Right.
again, if you want a player, sometimes that's what you got to do. We're here to critique everything that the Sharks did. So
Correct. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And again, I think, again, it's going to come down to drafting records, right? Like if you look at Steve Eiserman's draft record, it's much better than maybe a certain Sharks general manager.
oh yeah, for sure. I definitely trust in Steve Eiserman, and I like what you said about, hey, if it's a guy that you want, then just go take him. Like, don't worry about trading down. Just go take the guy. I mean, Moritz Seider, I said I had him 12th on
Mm-hmm.
my overall listing. I had him as my third best defenseman. But the player Bowen Byram for sure is the best defenseman in the draft, in my opinion. But the guy in between there, Cam York,
Mm-hmm.
definitely a completely different defenseman than what Moritz Seider is. I mean,
Exactly.
Cam York's a small offensive-minded defenseman, and Moritz Seider is a big, good skating, physical defenseman. And if that's what Eiserman decided was the need for Detroit over a small offensive defenseman, just take your guy. So
Yeah.
I commend him for that.
No,
And
absolutely.
Amy Spink sent in her. I didn't mean to get to this right away, but Amy
That's okay.
Spink had sent in her question to us at Teal Tinted Pod about Moritz Seider. So there you go. We answering fans' questions right off the bat.
Absolutely. Was there anything else? There wasn't really much. I don't know, intrigue. And again, I have to go into this with with the full disclosure that honestly, like normally I watch, in a normal season, I watch a lot of junior hockey. I watch a lot of AHL. I watch a lot of NHL. This
Mm-hmm.
season, I watched some NHL.
Mm-hmm.
So, I was really less invested in this draft than I have been in previous years for that reason. Just because, like, I other than the top 5, top 10, it wasn't really like I had any strong feelings on any of these guys. So I mean, the first round to me, it didn't, it wasn't. I think the lack of trades was the one thing that surprised me from the first night of the draft, but that was about it.
Yeah, and with the draft this year, I mean, we've said it on previous renditions of this show, of our draft special, where we had so many years of just immense quality of talent being
Hmm.
drafted. I mean, it was like 4 or 5 years where it was just you're hearing generational
Yes.
talent. Eventually, everything needs to balance out because the draft doesn't usually work out that way.
No.
And I think here last year was an okay draft. I mean, this year, man, early, like outside of the top 5, top 10, you're already seeing guys who probably would have been second and third round picks in the most recent years of drafts. So, and that's more of the norm. So I think that's part of why for us, it's like,
Hmm.
okay, well, I mean, my draft board, for example, my top 5 went first, second, fifth, fourth. Okay. And then ninth, 12th, 15th, 10th, and 17th. That was my top 9.
Hmm.
So, I mean, it was already after the first 5, my board already is not holding up to where players already, actually went. And so, last week we joked about the Will C's of the off season or whatever. I
Yeah.
mean, boy, this draft is littered with Will C's. So
It really
in
is.
fact,
Yeah.
now at this point, I think we need a defenseman who's 6'2", 180 pounds, named Will C.
Yes.
And he'll be that's about 150 players on this draft board.
I just want to get to this in the chat here quick. Vince in the
Yeah.
chat, sir, he heard safe pick to describe a lot of the picks outside the top 20, and I would agree with that going, just from my own review of the draft and some of, it's something that I feel like we read a lot. And even like I thought, and we're going to get into the Sharks picks right now, but I thought some of the, like, this was overall, I feel like this was a very Sharks draft.
Definitely. And with when you don't have the high end talent, outside of the top 10 in the draft this year, you're going to have a lot of project players, and so if you can find a safe pick in the midst of all these project players that are on the board, I mean, I think that actually adds value to it, unless you're going all out with the boom and bust players, which I don't think the Sharks did in this case, and that's fine.
No, and that's fine.
I mean, that's fine.
Yeah, Alex in the chat just saying the front office said this was a very front loaded. It absolutely was. The drop off between let's say 10 and 20 was pretty big.
Yeah, and I think that's why Dave Reed on NHL Network talked yesterday about how the Sharks apparently pushed very hard into getting into the first round.
Yeah.
And so when they obviously acquired the second round pick from Philadelphia in the Justin Braun trade, which I'm sure we'll get to here shortly, but then eventually traded down. And I'm thinking they were trying to use that pick to move up. Mm-hmm. So I'm really curious to know who the Sharks were eyeing in the first round that they didn't get, that they felt, okay, it didn't happen. Let's move down a few spots at this point and take somebody else, which that somebody else was, oh man, I can't even say it. I thought it was Nyazev, and then Doug Wilson Jr. pronounced it completely different. So
I have no idea. Artemi. We got the Artemi finally. We finally got Artemi.
We got our. I think it's Nyazev is how it's pronounced, but I always thought it was Nyazev. Yeah, I think it's Nyazev though.
Artemi, not Panarin, is how we are.
Not Panarin. Let's go with that. I like that.
So at round 2, 40th pick overall, the Sharks select left shot defenseman Artemi, not Panarin, 5'11", 176 pounds, currently playing for Chicoutimi in the QMJHL, or the Q as we so affectionately refer to it. And here are your Q stats. 55 games played, 13 goals, 21 assists, 34 points, 32 penalty minutes, and a +11. The team says that they had him as a first-round talent. Scouting disagrees. Basically, he was ranked by, and there's a bunch of scouting rankings. If you want to see like the individual rankings that all these players had, go to their league prospects page. I'm not going to list every possible ranking that had. Future hockey prospect, future considerations, ISS, McKean's, Bob McKenzie, and elite prospects. Well, that too. Had an average ranking of 66th. His lowest ranking was ISS at 56, and his highest was 112th by McKean's. McKean's is brutally hard on prospects though.
Yeah.
If you want to if you look at a lot of if McKean's ranks a guy really high, that's probably a special player because they grade guys really hard. So overall, your average, you draft him at 48th, and the most, the lowest ranking he had was from ISS at 56. So a little bit of a reach here. Obviously, again, in the second, third, fourth rounds, reaches are less, unless you really, really reach. It's not, you don't want to get too upset over, where the scouting services have people. But I mean, no one saw him as a first round talent. So it makes me nervous that the Sharks did. What the scouts do say, and this is mostly from future considerations, because their draft guide is one that I use pretty much every year.
Love their guide. Their guide.
Their guide's great.
And it's inexpensive too.
Yeah. So. It's an offensive defenseman who's an excellent skater but struggles in his own zone. Can make take questionable risks with the puck. Scouts think he has all the tools to be an excellent defender and a good first pass. So this is diet Ryan Merkley.
I was actually thinking this, when the draft pick got announced, I was thinking the same thing reading the scouting report. Like, it was very similar to Ryan Merkley, which that actually excites me in a way. I don't necessarily think that's the type of defenseman that the Sharks should have gone for with the needs of the organization or versus the strengths of the organization. But yeah, I think that's a good call. Go ahead, Ian.
Sugar-free Ryan Merkley.
Sugar-free. Oh, I liked Jerry had me busting up. He said it's unleavened Artemi. That's
there we go. Yeah, like I look at this pick. I mean, it doesn't excite me. I think that the Sharks have a lot of for one, they have, the on the grand scale of these players, they have two of these players playing in the NHL for a very long time. And then they have a decent amount of players like this in the system. I don't understand what the need is here. Like, I don't know what, and you don't always want to draft for need. Obviously, you want to take the best player on the board. I don't know if this would fit either of those categories where this player was picked. But I do, again, this is a player that, scouts think have the tools that he could round out his defensive game and be a solid offensive defenseman. Now, is that, how likely is that? Probably not very, but it's an interesting pick. Kevin, what are your thoughts?
Well, I know that Niazev has like a good head on his shoulders from what I've understood. I heard that he came over from Russia. Obviously, he's Russian, but has the full intent of playing his career entirely in North America. Like, the whole Russian factor thing, definitely not a case with this player. Yeah. And I have heard that his vision is exceptional. In fact, his vision is his best quality. And from the highlight package that I watched of him, I see that. He really does have a lot of poise and patience with the puck and in both zones. So that excites me. Just hearing all the things about he's kind of a one-dimensional offensive defenseman, that concerns me along with his size, because as you said, Ian, the Sharks do have several of these types of defensemen, and their recent draft history between Ryan Merkley and Jeremy Waugh and whatnot, their top 2-round players have been this. And so I know someone in the chat, I think it was Deuces in the chat, said that Alex Vlasic is the player that the Sharks should have gone for. And that was the same player that I had my eye on, not because of the last name, but because I do think that the Sharks need to get bigger on the back end, because the larger defensemen in this organization all are middling defensemen. They're not high end, and I'm not saying that Alex Vlasic is a high end defenseman, but when I hear 6'6" and mobile, that's something that the Sharks don't have. When they had Kyle Wood last year and Keaton Middleton last year still with the team, those are 6'5" defensemen. Middleton's agility is okay for 6'5". Wood's skating abilities, for his size and whatnot. That's always been the knock on him. So I would have liked to have gotten a bigger defenseman, but I'm okay with the pick that they had.
Yeah, it doesn't excite me. But it's not like I'm not throwing everything all over the place when we, there's been some years where we've made some picks and I've been just like, what in the hell are you doing? This isn't one of those situations. I just find it puzzling. So
yeah. Vince says, so what I'm saying is Niazev to forward. Well, let's not get there just yet, Andrew Bench. Okay.
Oh man. Wow, I can't believe you did that to Vince. All right, so still in the second round, 55th pick overall, the Sharks select Dylan Hamiluk.
So again, that's another one. I'm like, oh, Hamaliuk, and then Doug Wilson Jr. I think said Hamaluk. So I'm like,
Hamiluk.
oh,
All right.
damn
Well, you
it.
know what? I'm going with Doug Wilson Jr. on this one.
Yeah.
Uh, go. Yeah, I want to talk size. 6'3", 201 pounds. Left winger played last year in Seattle for the Thunderbirds. Will be playing this season for the Kelowna Rockets. He played 31 games before suffering an injury that ended his season, which obviously is always concerning. But in those 31 games, 11 goals, 15 assists for 26 points, not bad. 32 penalty minutes and a -2. He was ranked by the Athletic Hockey Prospect, Future Considerations McKeen's Elite Prospect, and Bob McKenzie with an average ranking of 86. The Athletic
What
had him.
what about Elite Projects?
Elite Projects also had him.
Oh, okay. Just making sure.
Yeah, just the Elite Projects. I like that. I'm going to actually refer to Elite Prospects as that from now on. They had him at 44. McKeen's had him at 153. So, depending on who you follow, this might be a little bit of a steal. Future Consideration says he's a fast skater, but he needs to work on his edge work. So, typical in that respect, where he does have some skating ability, but obviously there's work to be done. Hey, tell me if you've ever heard this about a San Jose draft pick before, especially at forward. A 200-foot player has potential to be a good playmaker despite a passing set that is nothing special. Can't skate and is a good 200-foot player. Yep, that's a Sharks draft pick.
With Hamaluk, all I was thinking was, oh, it's Adam Haluka with more offensive ability. Like, that was pretty much how I view it. And Adam Haluka was traded last evening for the ever so prevalent future considerations. But anyway, so Hamaluk, I'm fine with this because we have the Sharks organization does have size up the middle, but not necessarily size up the wing or on the wing. So with a third round pick, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, third round. Was it? Oh, late second.
Late second.
Yeah. I'm probably would have been a third round pick in a different draft. But I'm okay with this pick because there are other project big forwards out there that the Sharks did not take that I would be far more concerned about than Hamaluk. So I'm okay with this one.
Yeah, I'm not wowed by it. I'm just whelmed. It's an interesting prospect. It's always interesting when a guy comes out gangbusters to start a season like this. It'll be interesting to see. This might be a guy that comes out next year and completely blows the doors off the W, and then we'll be talking about how great this draft pick is.
And he was traded from Seattle to Kelowna. So being in a different organization next year to that, we see it a lot in Canadian juniors where players just bust out big time with a different opportunity than what they previously had. So
Kelowna's a good, like, if you want to look at teams in the W, like Kelowna's generally a perennially good team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so
absolutely.
it's a good landing spot for them. It's a good, it's a great organization. We've seen lots of we've seen a lot of big players come out of Kelowna. So it's a great spot for him to be in. I think that depending on what he does for him, he could explode, and then we'll be talking about how great this pick was. But it's definitely a gamble. A season-ending injury. It's obviously a gamble, and this is the kind of stuff that the Sharks do, though. They like to gamble on guys like this. If anyone, you look back when they drafted Kevin Labanc, we were all, you kind of looked at his numbers and you're like, all right, I guess. And then the next year he absolutely exploded, and it was the greatest, 5th, 6th round pick ever.
Yeah.
So, from that respect, I think I'm interested at least, right?
Yeah. I wrote down in my notes. Now, it's way too far to really make this comparison, but I wrote down maybe a new Ryan Clough. Maybe. So,
so does edge work, yeah.
Yeah. But Ryan Clough had the same issue. Same issue. So
I get nervous, though, because, like, we saw the Sharks kind of, move away from the, needs to work on their skating projects. And I feel like this year they kind of went back to that a little bit. Because I
Yeah,
feel like skating is such an important part of the game. Like, yes,
especially now.
you can teach skating for sure, but can you teach skating in time for this player to not just become another perennial AHLer? Like, that's my concern, right?
Yeah. Okay. Well, then to ask you here,
Mm-hmm.
is this pick a byproduct of the Sharks losing to St. Louis, who had a lot of players like Hamalik, Hamalik Ceiling on their roster? Is this an answer to trying to catch up to the current game, even though I still think you need to get ahead of the game and think how,
Right.
especially when you've got prospects that are 18 years old, are players like this going to matter in 2024 when they're NHL players?
That's
Like,
it. No, and
how's
that's
the
true.
game going to play?
Mm-hmm. Something else I'd say too is that another trend I noticed in the draft is that there was really the Sharks didn't really dip in the overage market this year.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know how many overagers were out there because I'm still putting my draft board together
Sure.
for the later rounds. I know Greg Morales, who's a player who was originally projected to be a top 5 player 2 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
projected to be, and didn't get drafted until his third year of eligibility. So he's one, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, to me, the fact that this draft wasn't is not considered very deep anyway, the overage players would create just extra caution to what's already not considered a deep.
I think it also shows that the Sharks, they're not looking for guys that like in previous years they knew that the pipeline was getting dry and they needed guys that could turn over more quickly. When you think
Yeah,
of a guy like Dylan Gambrell, who you obviously wanted to draft a guy that was closer to being NHL ready than a guy who would have to probably play a couple more years of juniors and whatnot. And I think I think this kind of shows that the Sharks, although like I think this shows kind of faith in what they have coming up
yeah,
from the AHL team. Like they have guys from the AHL team that they think are going to be NHLers this year, which is obviously completely other topic that we'll get to later. But I think that this kind of relates to that because
for
in
sure.
previous years you saw guys. I think Dylan Gambrell was one. There's another. There's they've drafted a few overagers
Yeah,
and double overagers in
Haluka
the
was
previous
one.
years. Yeah, Haluka, right? Perfect example of one. And then I think because they were kind of in a panic of, okay, who's really ready to make that next step, and now it is what it is,
Yeah,
right?
and I think that is one of the most underappreciated aspects of the draft each
Mm-hmm.
year is where are you organizationally with your prospects? We talked a lot about how the Barracuda have way too many players for their roster right now. I mean,
They do.
that's a huge part of why Francis Perron was traded yesterday. I'm not worried about that trade, for example. The
Mm-hmm.
Barracuda, without him, still have 18 forwards on their roster right now. So, with all that talent, you got to give them an opportunity. You're not going to add another 20-year-old who's going to turn pro right away. So
Right.
I like when teams say, okay, we don't need a guy for a while. Let's draft a 17-year-old, for example, because
Mm-hmm.
by the time he turns pro, we're going to then have holes in our roster. Like, it's all about preparing what's your roster this year, but also what's your roster going to be 2, 3 years down the line.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a really good point, Ian. I like that.
All right. Going on to the fourth round, 108th overall, Yegor Spiridonov. Plays for he's 6'2", 192 pounds, center left wing. Plays for the Magnitogorsk, the not KHL Magnitogorsk, obviously, the MHL, which is the lower league. 43 games, 15 goals, 26 assists, 41 points, 21 PIMs, and a plus 25. He was ranked by The Athletic, Future Considerations, McKean's Elite Projects, Bob McKenzie with an average ranking of 58. Future Considerations was really high on him. They had him at 38, while Bob McKenzie had him at 84th. So with an average ranking of 58th here, this, a lot of scouts were obviously really high on this guy. So to have him fall in your lap in the fourth round, um, isn't really bad, isn't a bad thing at all. Future Considerations, who again were the highest on him. They call him an elite two-way center who is difficult to knock off the puck. He has excellent awareness in all three zones. His concerns are with skating, again, because that's the Sharks, as he can appear sluggish compared to some of his peers. Some other, I know Sheng posted some stuff, and if you guys aren't following Sheng, I don't know what the hell's the matter with you. I really don't, because he's so great. And he posted some stuff that from his from some KHL people that weren't quite as high on him as future considerations is. But again, this is the Sharks. Again, not only are they drafting, they're not drafting the overagers, but they're also drafting guys who are contractually obligated to be in Russia for a little bit longer. So none of these guys are expected to wander over to the North American side of the pond anytime soon. I mean, obviously, in future considerations, I've said way more than this. I don't want to just read you an entire blurb from future considerations. Again, it's their draft guide's pretty economically available, and you should definitely check them out anytime they release something, because it's generally really good. It's insightful. I mean, obviously, I think with anything, like, obviously scouts are going to disagree on things, and obviously this is one group of scouts. So I'm not saying that this is like that future considerations is like the be all and end all of what a player is about, but it's definitely, it's something that is obviously worth taking a look at, and then obviously you got to combine your own viewings and make your own opinions.
Let's I mean, you really have to read between the lines for a lot of these, and so for me, I mean, I use it as, okay, well, I really, rather than ranking, I read what is said about these players and then make my own assessment. And a couple of years ago, future considerations was super high on Sasha Chmelevski and Ivan Chekovich. And look at where we're at right now. They're two of the top prospects in the organization. So, I mean, they're still not perfect. Nobody's perfect. It's all just educated guesses. But with a player like Igor Spiridonov, this is the most exciting prospect for me in the draft for the Sharks. I basically think of him as the anti-Russian. Usually most of the Russian players that are drafted, you hear one-dimensional Goldobin type players who are unhappy if they aren't scoring 40 goals a year and then pack their bags and go home, or just never come over to North America in the first place. And, Spiridonov is playing in Russia right now, but Hockey Jerk, of course, is a huge fan of Magnitogorsk. Mm-hmm. And Spiridonov is not in the KHL yet. He's still in the Russian junior system in the MHL, as you mentioned. But hearing a two-way, very cognitive, born leader.
Yes.
In Spiridonov, that has me excited for the future. And again, a player who is several years out. I like that you mentioned that contractual obligations in Russia usually adds a couple of years to players. Yeah. So again, going back to what we said earlier, now you've got room for Spiridonov to grow overseas, and then by the time he's ready, some of this mass of Barracuda players will have moved on at that point, and then you have room for a guy like Spiridonov at that time. So I really just like this pick as a value pick in the fourth round. And again, when Bob McKenzie has him in his top 93 and he's picked 108th, I think that says a lot too.
I agree. I mean, this is, again, like when you don't have a first round selection, right? I mean, it generally is going to come down to, how much a guy intrigues you. And obviously some guys are going to intrigue you more than others. This is a guy that intrigues me. I don't know if I'm not going to sit here and say this guy's a surefire NHLer based on what I, on what I know so far, but there's a lot to like about what I've read about him. There's a lot to like about his size. I think if you can, as long as he can, again, they can get him figure out his skating, and there's a lot to there seems like there's a lot to potentially like here going forward. Is this a slam dunk NHL player? Who in the fourth round is? But
hey, you're talking about slam dunk players. I've got two that I think will be slam dunk NHLers: Jack Hughes and Kaapo Kakko. And then after that, who knows? So,
right.
I'm gonna throw it out there. You heard it here first. Jack Hughes and Kaapo Kakko will be NHL players.
# foreseen.
Yes.
I feel like Jerk is the keeper of the foreseen points, so you might have to haggle with him for those ones. But I'll put in a good word for you. Um, okay, so the next pick, really, this is the puzzling one. Um,
Yeah.
Timur Abrigomov. Abrigomov? I like that. I'm going with that.
I
Abrigomov.
think it's Ibragimov, but I'm not.
Ibragimov? Yeah,
It
I don't
might
know.
also be Ibragimov. So
I don't know. I'm not Russian. 5'11", 163 pounds. Not exactly big. Left wing. Plays for the SKA 1946 St. Petersburg, whatever the hell that is in the MHL.
That's St.
That's their junior team.
Petersburg's
Okay,
juniors
so
team.
it's St. I don't know why the 1946. These Russian names, man. All these European teams are weird. Um, Not ranked by any major scouting service. Again, look at guys. We've seen players not get drafted at all. Forget not ranked, not get drafted at all and become NHLers. So, I mean, I wouldn't say that this is like, I wouldn't use this as a super indictment of the player, although there's not really a whole lot here that excites me. Um, from Shang, basically from his sources, not big but a flashy winger, with a good scoring touch. It's all about shooting and scoring. Main weaknesses is his defensive game. Fantastic. Um, it also a source, his source also said that it would be an achievement if and when he cracks one of the KHL's top teams, and that's always concerning. However, KHL service, the source also asked a very strange choice for the Sharks, not so good that he had to be drafted. The source wasn't high on his potential. And this is all from Shang's Twitter feed. So full props to Shang, who, again, is an excellent follow and did an amazing job covering the draft. So kudos to you, sir. Um, 63 games, 17 goals, 24 assists, 41 points. There's not whole lot there to be really excited about. And I get it's a 6th round pick, but still.
Yeah, I got very little on Ibragimov. To me, this is the polar opposite of the Spiridonov pick.
Yeah.
More typical Russian winger who's small, fast, has some scoring ability, and doesn't want to play in his own end. That's. I mean, I would be stunned to see this player even come to North America based on the scouting report the limited scouting report that we
Right.
have for him. But as Alex Martinet said in the chat a little while ago, sometimes you just got to go for your boom and bust picks in the late rounds. And I mean, the Sharks really keyed in on the Russian players this year. I'm not sure.
I think all their other scouts were on vacation this year, and they just had one.
Yeah, very interesting to me. But with Niazev and Spiridonov and Ibragimov, they obviously, I don't know if maybe they were scouting Spiridonov and then happened to see Ibragimov and said, "Oh, I like this guy too." I just don't know. But here you go, guys.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. This is I don't know. I feel like this is one of those picks where we're gonna look back on in 5 years and just see a bunch of zeros beside his name of 5 NHL gameplay. We're like, I completely forgot about that guy.
Yeah, forgot he was even drafted.
Yeah. That's my guess, but I don't know. This last pick here was 184th overall. This is actually, I think I do like the Spiridonov pick. This one I kind of like too. I like this as kind of like a sneaky pick for the Sharks. This is kind of in a similar vein of the Chmelevski pick, of the Chekovich picks that were way later than they were, expected to go. Although maybe not way later, but definitely later than the scouting surfaces that had scouted him had him. And this is the Sentiri Hataka. You know what? My Finn's just as good as my Russian. 6 foot.
Hataka.
Yeah. 6 foot. I feel like I still feel like I'm butchering. I don't know. 174 pounds, left shooting defenseman. He will be playing for Ives in the SM Liga next year. Played for Jokerit on their U20 team. He's been playing on their junior A U20 team since he was 17, which to me always is a good thing. because obviously they also have a U18 team, and he's been actually playing on the U7. He's been playing on the U20 team since he was 17.
Yeah.
Numbers aren't super exciting. 43 games, 4 goals, 9 assists, 30 PIMs, plus 8. He was ranked 144th by Future Considerations and 176th by McKean's. Future Considerations says he's a two-way defenseman who has all the tools to get the puck out of his own zone. Good skating speed, and a very good first pass. Needs to refine his puck handling and offensive creativity. Apparently likes to shoot into other people a lot. But he played in every situation on a weak Jokerit U20 team, which again, says a lot when you've been doing that since you were 17. I mean, he's 18 now, but that I think says a lot about the caliber of player that the Sharks drafted. Now, obviously, this is a late pick. This doesn't mean, I'm not saying that this guy is, going to be the next Nick Lidstrom, but I mean, again, this was a player who I couldn't really find a lot of negative about.
Yeah, with Hataka, I mean, it's kind of funny that with a 7th-round pick, he has a similar scouting report to the 2nd-round pick in Niazev, in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
I, of course, love Finnish players, so to me, I'm already excited.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, how can you not love the potential of, say, Hataka actually turns pro in North America and becomes a decent player? I'm visualizing on a power play Hataka scoring, and the graphic goes on the jumbotron, Hataka attack.
Oh man!
I mean, there's your marketing right there, Sharks. So, but really though, I mean, at a 7th-round pick, 6th round. I keep thinking it's a 7th-round pick, 6th-round pick. I'm not problem, but I don't have a problem with adding mobile offensive players no matter what position they're at. I'm a little concerned about his skating. Now, again, this is not a player I have seen at all,
right.
But it seems to me like he's got the skill and
Mm-hmm.
the mental side is there, but sometimes his footwork takes him out of his defensive position, proper defensive positioning. And so obviously the Sharks feel that they can work on that for him. And I'm fine with this pick. I'm with you, Ian. I think there's some excitement to be had here.
Yeah, I mean, he's gonna play. I mean, he's gonna play real pro hockey next year too, which I think is exciting. Obviously, when you look at these, when you look at the way that some of these leagues work up and over in Europe, obviously they have their lower teams, and so he could slide down and end up playing in a U20 team situation again. But I mean, the fact that he's going to have the opportunity to play in the top Finnish league, I think that's exciting for me.
Yeah, for sure. Well, is Jokerit in the KHL, or are they?
Jokerit is in the KHL, so he's going to be playing for Ives.
Oh, okay. I did not realize that he had switched orgs. So, okay, yeah, definitely. The Finnish league is just notoriously not physical, which is funny to me because I think the Finns are tough as hell.
Right.
But with a smaller defenseman, that should help his game. And hey, if it doesn't work out, then no sweat off the Sharks' back because they already got Tony Sund from Liga, right. And he'll be with the Barracuda this year. So at this point, you just go with the qualities of players that you like, and the Sharks saw something in him, and I'm fine with it.
I like it because it's an intriguing pick for me, right? And I think in the 6th round, that's really all you can ask for, is to actually just be like, that's an interesting pick. And I think Hataka definitely fits that build. It'll be, will he make it to the NHL? Who knows? But it's definitely a player that, might draw a little more attention than other players in the Sharks prospect pool. Also in the draft, the Sharks traded Tom Pyatt, Sharks acquired Tom Pyatt, for a 6th-round pick.
Was that this pick?
I believe that was this pick. And that was for Francis Perron in a 7th. Pyatt, for anyone who hadn't heard this yet, is a UFA. The Sharks had to take him because Vancouver was at the 50 contract maximum.
Yeah, and you see that a lot. I laugh when I look at Twitter when I hear, why did a team, not just the
Mm-hmm.
Sharks, but why would a team acquire this player? But organizations have 50 contract limits, so sometimes you take on a player you have no intention of re-signing just to help the team out and put yourself in a better position. Sharks obviously, because again, I think this pick was the pick acquired for Perron was the Hataka pick.
Mm-hmm.
Sharks felt the need to take him at that time. And Francis Perron is a guy that I don't think the Sharks were bringing back anyway.
I don't
Not
think so.
not just in terms of, again, the massive amount of depth the Barracuda already have, but I know a lot of people were up in arms over Francis Perron being the best pure goal scorer on the Barracuda last year. Yeah, well, if your best pure goal scorer scores 5 goals in the last 36 games of the season and
Yeah.
none in the playoffs, then boy, this team's in a lot deeper concern than what I feel they are. Francis Perron was a player who had 2 good months,
Yeah.
and all of his goals were scored by being set up wide open on a power play and shooting it up high. He's got great accuracy with his shot, but he really doesn't have much playmaking ability. His two-way game is inconsistent. His skating is okay. To me, I think way too much was made of him, and I'm really happy that I like Francis Perron, but
sure.
to be quite honest, I'm really happy that I won't have to hear the Sharks need to bring up Francis Perron right now because he's not an NHL player.
You know what, Nate? I think Francis Perron. This is another thing where the Sharks will take your AHLer in an NHL deal, and they will play him for the year, and then he's gone.
Yeah.
And we've seen this a couple of times. We saw this. What's his name? I can't remember his name now. He was one of my favorite players on the Barracuda that year.
Yeah.
Went to Winnipeg.
Yeah, and then to Calgary.
Right.
So you know what? The fact that, very few people, obviously we had heard of Francis Perron, but very few people had even heard of Francis Perron going into this season. So the fact that you turned a throw in a trade into a pick that the Sharks obviously like, I think that's a win for the Sharks. And that
Robinson,
player
thank you,
is...
Vince.
What's up?
I said Buddy Robinson. Thank you, Vince.
Yeah, buddy. Yeah, my buddy. But the Sharks were able to take Santeri Hataka with this pick. And as Vince said in the chat, follow Timu V. Carey on Twitter because he will definitely be a Sharks fan keeping tabs on Hataka. I like that. So best of luck to Francis Perron. I honestly... You never know. The Vancouver might not even re-sign him. It might not tender him an offer at this point, So we'll see with that. But I saw no future with the Sharks for him. So best of luck.
Hashtag we'll see. All right, so let's overall draft thoughts. To me, it was a very meh draft. It wasn't, there's a couple players that I'm intrigued by, but there's obviously taking where the Sharks were selecting players, the type of draft it was. It's really not a draft to get that excited about, right?
No.
To me, it's kind of just a meh draft. It wasn't. I'm glad I'm glad that this year that circumstances forced us to kind of just push our coverage to Sunday and not try to pump this thing up over 2 days.
Yeah. You guys, obviously, I don't have my my video feed on tonight, and this is all just a matter of it's really hot, and I'm trying not to overheat my laptop, so that's why I have the video off tonight. But y'all didn't need to see me swimming around in a pool pretending to know what I'm talking about in the draft yesterday. So I'm glad we were able to push this out to tonight. And thank you for joining us. If you're new to the show, we love doing these draft shows, no matter if we do know a lot about players, if we don't know a lot about players. But I think we did a pretty good job, Ian. So give us a subscription and make sure you ring that bell because you want to be alerted next time we're on, which I am assuming would be... We still have more of the show, by the way. But I'm assuming our next show... Yeah, I'm assuming our next show will be next week there when free agent frenzy happens. So, or the Sharks somehow sign Patrick Marleau early or whatever it is.
Is Sleepy saying someone gave the Sharks a C grade on the Athletic? That was Corey Pronman. I think I've seen a lot of D's elsewhere. Again, these are one of these things where you don't want to read too much into it, right? Because again, like where the Sharks were selecting and what they were going to do. I mean, they're really. I mean, it would be hard, to give it a passing grade based on a handful of late round picks.
Yeah, for this draft, I'm actually trying to pull up last year's draft because I know I gave last year's draft a C+ for the Sharks. I'm trying to remember who the Sharks drafted last year.
Ryan Merkley.
I knew that.
Ryan Merkley, and Ryan.
Oh,
Merkley.
Carlson, Weatherby, Amond, and Leonard. Okay, well, I liked the Leonard pick. I hated the Amond pick, and that turned out to be brilliant. So good on you, Sharks.
Shut up, Ian.
Right. Weatherby, I was kind of on. Carlson, of course, you guys know I didn't like that pick, and that he's already off to Vancouver. So I compared to last year with the C+ for Merkley and Leonard versus this year, I'll give it a C-. But I don't. Again, a lot of that is compared to the talent of this year's draft. It wasn't that strong, and I think the Sharks did okay. So okay to me, C-. I'd even give them a C.
I also went pretty ballistic on the Emon pick.
We
all hated it. And look at he played on a Memorial Cup winning team. We'll see how he does as a starter. Although his backup numbers are really good. But this is a team that did win the Memorial Cup, so he had a very good team in front of him. I'm curious to see what we see out of next year. That's by no means an indictment on Emond or me trying to say, oh, well, we haven't seen anything yet. Now we'll see the starter, and then he's going to suck, and then I'll be right.
I hope not, yeah.
That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm just saying that obviously, we're really going to see, I think, next season, we're really going to get a better feel for how good he is because he's going to be the guy next year.
Yeah, and last year, I remember I did not like the Amond draft pick, but then when the prospects camp came around, I saw him in person and thought, oh, you know what? There is some talent there. And obviously having a 24-0-1 season this year, again, Memorial Cup team, but, that's nothing to bat an eye at. So we've got a Sharks prospect scrimmage coming up on Friday, which, of course, we will cover again here on Teal Tinted Glasses. And who knows, maybe some of these players who were drafted today that were on, like Timur Ibrahimov, maybe he's going to go out there and super impress me. And next week I'll tell you know what? Good on you, Sharks. So
good on you, Sharks.
Yeah, we'll be able to assess better next week. But
if you're going to go off the board, though, why didn't you just draft Putin?
Oh, wow.
Putin scores. I've seen the highlight reels.
Oh, 6 goals. That's true.
That's
6 goals in a game is pretty awesome.
It is pretty awesome. I think they should have went off the board and drafted Vladimir Putin. I wonder if he would have come. I wonder if he'd report.
Well, then we could rig the All-Star voting too.
Oh man. All right. So let's get to some other news and stuff around obviously the Sharks and the rest of the league. I think the place to start is obviously the salary cap has finally been set. Most contentious salary cap setting ever. No lockout coming. Don't worry, guys. Because there's going to be a strike.
Yeah. Oh, man. I cannot believe.
Everyone's right. It's not going to be a lockout. It's going to be a strike.
It's going to be a strike, yeah.
It's going to be a player strike.
I cannot believe that it took this long to get the salary cap info out there. And I mean, it's been out for a few weeks, 82, 83 million. So what was the delay to drop it a $500,000 to $1 million? Like what? Why? And that hurt the draft trading on day one for sure.
The players are flexing their escrow muscle. They're sending a message that they're sick of escrow. They're not going to just take it on the chin anymore. Well, and let's get into the escrow thing second. Let's just actually get to what the salary cap is first, and then we can kind of talk about the escrow there for a second, because I think it's still an important topic.
Yep.
Although I don't want to bring the whole chat and everything down and like doom and gloom. Salary cap ceiling is going to be 81.5 million. For the Sharks, this means that you have $14.84 million to spend on a lot of players, because you only have 7 NHL forwards, and if you include Radim Šimić, you have 5 NHL defensemen signed and 2 goalies. So you need, by my math, you have what, 12 forwards? I mean, 5 NHL forwards.
Yeah, the number. This is why I took a lot of heat this week for saying something I've been saying for a year, in that I thought last year was Brent Burns' last year with the Sharks. Now that Erik Karlsson signed, I was contingent on that. But with Erik Karlsson being re-signed, I just don't see how you can have 2 big money defensemen on the roster and be able to fill adequately. I mean, you could throw Ian and I out there, at league minimum, but we're not going to obviously be able to do anything except for maybe cheer our teammates on. Yes. So I am concerned about the number of holes on the Sharks roster next year, and something's got to give, especially with less than 15 million in cap space. Right. I'm expecting more trades to announce here in the next week. So,
and it's also important to say that, yes, I'm talking about only having about having only 7 NHL forwards signed, but I think Joe Thornton's going to be back on this team next year. Obviously, they're going to take care of the RFAs, so there's 2 more spots when it's like not like Timo Meier and Kevin Labanc are going anywhere. At least I don't think they are, maybe. So I think, you got obviously guys that are going to fill holes once their contract situation is sorted out. And I think that the Sharks, even though the blue line is kind of scary as far as, things that could still happen, it's not, when you say, oh my god, they only have 7 NHL forwards and 5 NHLs, well, it's not that bad, because they're obviously going to sign guys. Like, they've got guys that they control the rights to, that I don't foresee them having an issue re-signing. Like, I don't think that, I'm really confident, like, Timo Meier's going to get re-signed without any real hassle. I think they'll grind him down, and I think the same for Kevin Labanc, but they have no rights, so what are they going to do, sit at home?
Yeah.
I mean, that's their option, right? Or sign an offer sheet, but
yeah.
Unless if the offer sheet's stupid, then the Sharks are gonna, if the offer sheet's stupid, the Sharks are obviously gonna take the draft picks.
Sure.
And and if it's decent, then they'll just match it. So, I'm not really concerned about either of those guys being back. As far as being re-signed goes, I think back to the escrow point before we get into this though, because I did want to make a point about escrow, and about how the number's lower. And I think what this really shows for the players though is that the bulk of the membership has really, it's not the top guys that the escrows hurt. It's the general membership. It's your guys making, less than $4 million. That's who the escrow's kicking the crap out of. And those guys have taken that hit on the belief from the Players Association that if you keep increasing the cap, then, top players are going to get more money, and then that's going to trickle down to you. When that really hasn't been the case. It's, the middle class of the NHL is really the one that gets squeezed out.
For sure.
You have your top end, and then you have your low end, and the guys in the middle, I mean, these are the guys that are continuously traded, bought out, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, because, the high tide does not raise all boats, apparently. And I think that, I think that the players doing that this time around and not using the full escalator and everything kind of shows that the membership as a whole is kind of not only sick of escrow, but they're sick of escrow for the sake of a few guys at the top.
Yeah.
They're sick of escrow for, 23-year-old Mitch Marner, 20-whatever-year-old Mitch Marner to get $11 trillion.
11 million. Yeah.
Right? Like, I think that's going to be really interesting heading into the next CBA, because I think this really shows, to me, this shows that the players, as a whole, especially, the bulk of the membership is sick of this, period. And I don't know the answer to the escrow problem, but it's going to be interesting.
Yeah. And when you're talking about middle of the pack players, I love the contract that William Karlsson got from Vegas today, because think about think about that. Like William Karlsson puts himself in a position where he's obviously very happy in Vegas, and you get like Patrick Marleau got traded yesterday.
Yep.
For salary reasons, because his production was not matching the contract that he signed with Toronto. And we see that a lot. We see that more and more. I'm trying to think of who it was that we just talked about last week, who was in the situation where the player is not bad. Oh, Andrew McDonald. We talked about Andrew McDonald and how he was making way too much for the type of player that he was. Not that he's a bad player, but just it was too much for what they were getting out of him. William Karlsson signing a $6 million contract per season
like
yeah, something like that. You know, not only does he help his team by you know, not using the entire cap on one player, and which helps benefit the team, but at the same time, you put yourself in a position where, say, he only puts up 17 goals one year. He's not going to immediately be trade bait because he's making $9 or $10 million a year for a 17 goal output. Like, and so I think with what you're talking about with the escrow and whatnot, I think if the players just had more contracts like this, they were willing to take a little bit less, it would help the bottom end guys. Again, greed's a huge factor in it, but it would help the bottom end players out a little more and themselves and whatnot. I think so. And then talking about Mitch Marner real fast, because you mentioned his name, wouldn't it be hilarious, since Carolina obviously has a ton of cap space, that they're willing to absorb Patrick Marleau's contract buyout? But wouldn't it then be funny in turn, Carolina offer sheets Mitch Marner? It's like, hey, we just did you a favor, and now screw you, we're offer sheeting Mitch Marner.
That'd be pretty great. Yeah. Yeah, and yeah, obviously, you know, Vince bringing up a topic I was waiting to come up, that, you know, obviously the tax thing is going to come up here and people are going to be like, oh, well, there's no income tax, so he's going to take most of that home. Yeah, I get that, but at the same time, I mean, like, again, if I'm a player, especially players right now, I mean, they're generally taking whatever they can get for themselves, and with really disregard for the team. And I mean, Vegas is still way over the cap, significantly over the cap. There's going to be paying for them, but it's, you know, it could be like at least $2 million left in pain than they could have had.
For sure.
You know, definitely. So I think I you know, again, so it's not like, you know, William Karlsson's going to make everything great in Vegas. The Vegas is going to have to make some painful decisions.
Yep.
But I don't know. Rob saying, is there going to be like a franchise tag or something? The NHL doesn't want it. The NHL loves their hard cap, man. And I know some team executives, you know, so says Alan Walsh, whose job is to make the players as much money as possible. So I'd take anything he says with a grain of salt. But I'm sure there's some executives in some markets, like Toronto, for example, that, you know, are unhappy. But I think all in all, most teams are happy with the hard cap. I would argue the majority of the league is happy with the hard cap, and they're not going to cross Bettman. It's not going to happen. So I don't know. That's my opinion on you know, the salary cap changing. Who knows? I mean, obviously, we'll see what happens in the next CBA, but it's going to be really hard to get Bettman to agree to a non-cap system, in my opinion.
Yeah, that'd be. I mean, then you're in a situation of what was the point of the 2005 lockout? Right. You're undoing what they took a full year away from to achieve. So that's just not going to happen. Yeah. Speaking of big money players,
yes,
Ian, how do you feel about Erik Karlsson being re-signed?
I'm okay with it. I mean, now that it's done, I'm okay with it. Like, I like Erik Karlsson. I think Erik Karlsson is easily one of the best defensemen to ever play the game. I have faith that this injury-ridden season isn't going to be the norm, and that's the question, right? It's not so much like, and we said this, and I think I said this last show too. You know, my biggest fear about Erik Karlsson was him going to another city, having a healthy season, and then us being like, damn.
Yeah,
right?
For sure. Hmm.
And so I feel like, obviously Doug Wilson's taking a gamble here on Erik Karlsson's health, but I think it's a good gamble. I think that, this is a guy who generally plays a lot of games, despite some pretty horrific injuries, to be completely honest. Now, is that ankle going to hold up for all 8 years of that deal? I don't know, especially if
Yeah,
he's not fit.
that's my concern is how
Um,
healthy will he be in those latter years?
but could the Sharks, could he be really great for the Sharks in the first half of that contract? Yep.
Absolutely. And he's only
And
29 years old. So
correct.
well, I think the biggest concern is the injuries. It's not the how old's he going to be at the end of the contract.
No.
I think that's a non factor. It's just can he have 8 healthy years is
Right. I
the
mean,
big
I'm
question.
afraid of the Sharks' short-term future is a little bit scary, but their long-term future is a lot worse, in my opinion. Like
Yeah.
when you're like, oh, Brent Burns is 40. Hey Arizona, if you're still Arizona at this time, you feel like getting a contract for it. Like that's when I get nervous about this team. But in the immediate future, I think that if Erik Karlsson can be healthy, and I believe that he can be healthy, this is a plus. You're not replacing Erik Karlsson.
Oh,
Like no matter
definitely.
what you did after this, you weren't replacing Erik Karlsson. There's no guy in the system that's going to be, Ryan Merkley's not going to be here tomorrow and replace Erik Karlsson. Ryan Merkley is going to have to fight like hell for ice time on the Barracuda next season.
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
his ECHL defense is not going to do him any favors turning pro. It's not junior anymore.
Well, yeah. Well,
So,
he'd be in junior next year actually. But
okay.
yeah, but your point is valid
Like
completely.
it's time to, the Sharks were gonna have to do something. The Sharks are gonna have to do something. Obviously, there's gonna be pain because of this. As I mentioned, part of the reason the Sharks only have $14.8 million in cap space is Erik Karlsson taking 11.5. It was the deal. Is it, again, I don't like that the Sharks had to throw an extra, half a million in here just to make him the highest paid defenseman in the league. Um,
Yeah.
but it's Erik Karlsson, man. Like,
Yeah,
this is a generational defenseman. You
yeah, we
don't go ahead.
talked about it last week on last week's show. The Sharks did not trade for Erik Karlsson to let him go in free agency.
Yeah,
Like they absolutely needed to make the play to try and bring him back, and they succeeded at that. Now the fallout of that is going to be very hopefully fun, but very interesting to watch. And I still think that Karlsson is the changing of the guard on the back end. I mean, we've heard the rumors about Brendan Dillon being shopped.
yep,
Man, I really hope that doesn't happen.
me too.
I think Dillon's the type of player that the Sharks need to keep, especially now that Justin Braun is gone.
Yes,
Justin Braun, a player that I've loved, but it was his time to go.
I've been on
And
the get rid of Justin Braun train for like 3 years.
oh,
I've
and you're not the only one. There have been a lot. There are a lot of Justin Braun haters. I'm not one, but there are definitely a lot of Justin Braun haters out there. And I do think it was his time to go. But who are you going to? There's nobody in the system who's going to be able to replace both Braun and Dillon if Dillon gets traded.
right, and
So
that's my concern now is that if you shed Dillon to get cap space, who are like for starters? I
we're
guess
not
my
bringing
question.
Schlumko back. That's for sure.
Well, my question is if you're moving Dillon's cap hit, where is that money? Is that money going to the forwards? You would guess, right? Like this is going to be Pavelski money at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, unless it's just the patchwork defense and you really are relying on Carlson and Burns to play 40 minutes a night, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah,
Um,
see, here's the problem. I know, because I know you said Brent Burns and Brent Burns' name's coming up in the chat. But the problem with Brent Burns is a three-team. He has three teams he can agree to a trade to.
yeah, that's true. My concern is Brent Burns seems like the type of guy where if he's willing to waive his no trade clause or no movement clause, it's going to
Mm-hmm.
be to another Western Conference opponent. And do you want Brent Burns scoring 80 points a season against your team?
Right, like does he where do you trade him
I mean,
to?
I'd love to
Dallas?
play against him defensively and just skate around him as he starfishes himself into the corner. But yeah, that's going to be a tough one.
Yeah,
I just don't see him. I don't see him accepting a trade to the Eastern Conference. So that's another issue.
And he has you over barrel. You're not like look at. I mean, some of the other things that happened this weekend. I mean, we saw PK Subban traded for basically a couple boxes of pizza and a 6-pack.
Oh man, that's exciting for me because I might be going to New Jersey's home opener to start the year to see PK Subban live in New Jersey. That'd be pretty cool. I like that pickup for them too.
Oh yeah, so do I. But I mean, they gave up nothing for him.
No, for real. Oh, especially the long term. I'm trying to the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon and all that. I don't remember what it is, but it's astronomical. It's like Suter and 4 players, basically for Santini, Davies, and 2 second-round picks. In the long term of it,
it's ridiculous. Yeah, Santini, Davis, and 2 second-rounders. That's it.
Yeah,
it's like that's pennies on the dollar for PK Subban. So
I do agree with Sleepy Mofo that Subban has an injury history and his quality of play has gone downhill. But I'm not going to rule Subban out because if I do that, I'm a hypocrite for saying the Sharks are fine for signing Erik Karlsson for $11 million when it's kind of the same situation.
Well, not only that, but I think Nashville had a very crowded blue line.
Well, they'll be fine. That's the one thing about the return. They will be fine without PK Subban.
They will be. But I mean, like that. But that's kind of my point, though. I mean, PK Subban, maybe didn't benefit his game so much by not having to be the guy because Roman Jossi's the guy.
Yeah.
Whereas now in New Jersey, he has to be the guy again. Like he's gonna be the guy again.
Yeah.
On the blue line, right? And I think maybe that benefits his game somewhat, where maybe he got a little bit complacent with, maybe he got a little complacent on the Nashville blue line.
That's fair.
It was just star.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, Josi, Ekholm, Ellis, then Subban.
Right.
And I mean, they've got Fabro coming in, and I know there's another young defenseman they've got. So yeah. They'll be okay, but I do think complacency is a huge factor in this, not just the injuries, but
right. Yeah, again, I'm not saying I watched a ton of Nashville this year. I just wonder if because in Montreal on the blue line he was the guy, period, and he's going to get that opportunity again in New Jersey. So I wonder how that's going to affect his game if we'll see a rebound there.
And I think that having a natural rival in the Rangers, like who's Nashville's natural rival? Like honestly, man, St. Louis, Chicago, and Detroit. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess it would be St. Louis or Chicago.
Yeah, but it's like I guess kind of thing. New Jersey rival Rangers. That's going to amp PK Subban up so much.
Yeah.
So I think that he's going to have a fire under his ass, and he's going to do well in New Jersey.
Nashville, Chicago, but I think because Chicago had fallen off so badly at that point.
Yeah,
it's okay. Yeah, I'm with you there. Yeah, so I Justin Braun getting traded, 2019 second, 2020 third. It's more than I thought we'd get for Justin Braun, to be completely honest with that cap hit. Didn't retain any cap, which is obviously important for the Sharks. Again, this is kind of a move that I think the Sharks had to do. I think you want to get value, and I don't like the idea that Brendan Dillon could be next on the list because, again, who the hell are they going to put there? But at the same time, this could be another thing where like Justin Braun has value this year because he has a year left on his contract, and then he's a UFA.
Yeah.
Brendan Dillon, same thing. Like if you're looking to maximize the value of some of these assets, then I guess you have to move on from them. But I don't understand what the Sharks would then do on the blue line at that point. Because now you're going to have a completely green third pair, or you're going to have, completely green guys playing with guys that they shouldn't be playing with, period.
Yeah.
Right?
Now, I heard, I because I was out of town, I don't know all the specifics, but I heard that, because I know when Justin Braun was acquired by Philadelphia, the Flyers fans were up in arms about what is Fletcher doing and whatnot, but I heard Philadelphia recouped basically those same picks, if not better picks. Is that true? Because someone on Twitter, I wish I could remember who it was,
Mhm.
said they basically got Justin Braun for free because they were able to get those picks back in a different deal. That's why I'm asking.
I don't know what the Flyers are doing. The
Okay,
Flyers
all
are a
right.
very weird team to me right now.
AO says
Um,
Flyers fans complain about everything.
that's
Yeah,
true.
that's true.
I think the two teams that I kind of just scratch my head at right now, as far as like everything that's gone on so far, the Flyers for sure, and the Canucks are two of the most head scratching teams in my opinion.
Yeah.
The Flyers just signed they just signed Kevin Hayes to that stupid deal.
Oh man,
Like that deal's
7 years,
awful.
50 million.
For what? Like how in the hell does that get like you look at his production and I don't understand how that's a $7 million player.
Yeah.
Like
To me, you sign him at 5 years, 28 million.
you, like I don't understand that deal for the Flyers. I mean, it seems like the Flyers and the Canucks too. Like they're doing some weird things where it's like the Canucks clearly think they're going to be competitive this year, and I'm not
Yeah.
sure where they get that.
Yeah, and I talked with Eric with Puck Guy on the Teal Town USA podcast on Friday about
Mm-hmm.
this exact thing. In that Vancouver has this, at least in recent history, but I think it does go back further, where the moment they think they can contend, they sell the farm.
Right.
And right now, I really like what Vancouver's been doing with their prospect building and their drafting and whatnot. Like, I think they have a lot of potential in the future. But the fact that what you just said, Vancouver thinks they're going to be competitive this year, I'm like, oh boy. If I'm a Canucks fan, I'm concerned about what the future moves could be, because that they just need to stay the course. They were fine not making the playoffs this year. They will be fine not making the playoffs next year. Just stay the course. Build your team around Pedersen and Besser. Don't add Lucic. What are you? That
Right.
worked out great for Edmonton.
I
Like,
don't understand. Like I don't know what they are doing in Vancouver. Like I don't know, man. Like they just I think they're delusional. I think and and it's probably in my opinion this is ownership meddling because this is seems like a totally Aquilini thing to do at this point, right? Oh, we had a
yeah,
good start to last season. Just imagine if we could build off that. So let's just everything's better. Like I don't think that this is a better team. Like Vancouver, they're brutal. I mean, they made I can't remember what the trade was, but they traded, you know, they traded a pick and then it became a lottery pick. If it's a lottery pick, it's lottery protected, but you're basically, you're saying that in 2021 you're not going to be a lottery team, like that you're that certain. They for JT Miller trade, from Tampa Bay, right? They sent a goalie, a 2019 third, and a 2020 conditional first. That's lottery protected, but it becomes a 2021, thing if Vancouver's in the lottery. If the Vancouver Canucks are in the lottery next year, where are they not going to be in the lottery in 2021? Like, it's not
yeah,
like I don't think the Pacific is wide open, but they're not close.
no, no. And talking earlier about plan where you're going to be for the future. And if the Canucks feel that they're going to be, there in a few years, that or in a couple years, I should say, that seems like a pipe dream.
Yeah.
Like, you really need to get some better analysts in your organization if you think that's going to happen if you're the Canucks. But Christine says fine with me if they feel they're delusional. And yeah, as Sharks fans, sure,
Absolutely.
absolutely, go ahead and shoot yourselves in the foot, Vancouver. You can join Edmonton at the bottom of the division for all we care.
Yeah. I mean, God, what a mess. I don't understand what the Canucks are doing, and some of the moves that the Flyers have made, like I understand they want to spend money and they want to, they want to be the big dog in the yard again apparently, but I it takes more than just throwing money around. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
For
AO says Vancouver setting themselves up to get beat by Seattle in year one.
yeah, well, who knows? I mean, Seattle might go to the Stanley Cup final. Who knows? But like here's the thing with like Philly too is like it's I understand that okay you were tired of waiting under Hextall, you were tired of being patient, things had to kind of coalesce a little bit, but at the same time like doing the exact opposite or going back to doing what clearly didn't work before, I don't understand why that's suddenly the thing again. Because it's not like Philadelphia was, before Hextall took over and kind of, restocked the cupboard and everything, it wasn't like the Flyers were amazing in the Cap era.
No. I mean, boy, I don't remember the last time. I mean, I thought this was the year the Flyers were going to take a step forward. I think I even picked them. I picked them to be my dark horse team to make the playoffs in the East this year. And they fell flat on their face because of a bad start and a coaching change. I still don't think it was Dave Haxtell's fault because the coaching change didn't work.
Right.
So, man, I don't know. I mean, hey, I applaud Philly for trying to right the ship, but I feel like it's going backwards. Driving backwards is it's change, but
yeah, I don't know if it's change for the better.
Yeah. Hey, this we should wrap this up, but we didn't get to the Trouba trade yet, and that was a pretty big deal to me too.
Yeah, Jacob Trouba going to the New York Rangers for Neil Poink and a 2019 first rounder. What are the Jets going to do? I mean, Trouba wasn't coming back.
Yeah.
Like, he kind of had them over a barrel. I mean, Trouba's a guy that has already sat at home once,
Yeah, already.
Right. So it's like you want to go through that nonsense again, and obviously the Jets said no, they don't need that, drama in the locker room, and it's, the Jets. It's gonna be interesting to see what the Jets do going forward because I feel like the Jets have a good team, but they're also on the, I don't want to say they shouldn't be, but they're kind of on the cash poorer end of the NHL, and they shouldn't.
Yeah. Well, with Winnipeg, I think my concern about the Jets for next year trading Jacob Trouba is that they won't have Tyler Myers back either. But Winnipeg has set themselves up kind of for this because they have drafted well. They've developed prospects well in the recent years, and they've really stocked the cupboard. And so I do think that like Neil Pionk, loved Neil Pionk for New York last year. I really did. I think that if you're a Jets fan and you're sorry about this trade, you need to study the rest of the league a little bit more because I think Neil Pionk's going to be just fine for them. And they get a first round pick as well. From a Rangers standpoint, okay, it's Trouba's solid. He's a solid player. I don't think he's an outstanding player, but he's a solid player. And when they're going for their full-out rebuild, you need solid players.
Absolutely.
I think the Rangers
can't hate the move for the Rangers.
No. I think the Rangers still need to add an elite defenseman, but I mean that can be down the line because they're not going to be competing for a playoff spot next year and maybe not even the year after that. So they have time to acquire that player or develop that player. But I think the trade is fine for both teams. But I am curious to see what Trouba gets for his contract because Winnipeg was hesitant to give him more money than what he got.
Well, apparently and I think they're already talking about moving Ehlers as well.
Yeah,
for cap consideration, and that baffles my brain.
That baffles my brain too. I wish the Sharks weren't in cap hell right now because, hey, Alex True is Nikolai Ehlers' cousin, so family connections. Bring him aboard. I'd be very happy to get Nikolai Ehlers
for sure.
But yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I guess it's all in preparation for what Patrick Laine is going to ask for, right? Like, that's the problem.
What was that?
I said the problem, obviously, is what is Patrick Laine going to ask for?
Oh, yeah, I know.
And I don't know. It is what it is, I guess. But, I mean, it's kind of... I mean, I can see how it's got to be frustrating for Jets fans, though.
Yeah.
Yeah,
definitely.
I mean, it's frustrating for a lot of teams. Like, the cap does. I mean, the cap obviously does have this effect on a lot of teams. Like we've seen, we saw PK Subban get shipped out for pennies on the dollar.
Mhm.
It's, we're gonna see, maybe Mitch Marner gets an offer sheet, maybe he doesn't, but they had to give Carolina a first round pick to possibly buy out Marlowe if they can't convince him to stay, which they won't. But
Yeah. And they
it's
and we're going to see more teams like this.
oh
Like
yeah,
right now, it's the Sharks and the Jets and a couple of the teams. But as we get closer to the next CBA, and once the next CBA is enacted, you might see some other a lot more teams really scrambling around trying to figure this all out.
yeah.
So I guess in this respect, if you're the Sharks and Jets, get it over with now. Uh, but these are two teams. I think Florida's another team. It's going to be a very wild ride the next few weeks. So
For sure. Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, there's going to be a lot to cover going forward. Like you said, prospect scrimmage is coming up. I mean,
yeah,
the Sharks are nowhere near done.
no,
Like there's going to be more Sharks news that we're going to have to discuss because I mean, obviously, like we can't really get too deep into things right now because we're already at 85 minutes. But I mean,
yeah.
still the Sharks still have to do qualifying offers for their RFAs to see see who gets a qualifying offer. Even.
And now that Perron is gone, I mean, Perron was the maybe to me, even though I didn't see it happening. But I mean, if
Right.
it did, it did. I don't think, as far as okay, LeBanc, Gambrell, Meyer, sure.
Sure.
As far as Barracuda players, I don't think a single one gets a qualifying offer. So
And I think the same goes for Joachim Ryan.
wow, oh that's right, you did. Yeah, that's right.
Because
You
Joachim Ryan,
mentioned that last week.
they're gonna nuke his arbitration rights like they always do.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I don't think Joachim Ryan's gonna get an
They might
offer sheet.
they might have to after the Carlson deal, just for the sense of the what if on what if the arbitrator rules in favor of Joachim Ryan, they'd be hosed. I mean, they could walk away from the ruling, but
I don't think they would do that though. I think they're just gonna avoid it altogether.
just yeah, oh yeah, exactly.
And that's the thing, right? Like, and then obviously there's still questions like, Pavelski's apparently talking to other teams. I look at this team though, and I mean, I think before Carlson got signed, we talked about, at Pavelski, let's say 7x2, are you okay with? Like, I am not okay with that anymore. Like Erik Karlsson has changed the Pavelski conversation to like I don't see a way he comes back unless it's on like a William Karlsson sweetheart deal where he's gonna have to take significantly less to come back.
Yeah. Yeah.
We should finish on this though because it is.
Oh, I'm sorry, Nick DeSimone's an RFA. He will be back.
He'll be back.
And him and Fitzgerald will be back. But other than that,
yeah. We should end with this though because I think we would get on a lot of crap if we didn't at least talk about this.
Okay.
Patrick Marleau. It has to be discussed.
Boy, what a difference a couple of hours make. So I'm on the car ride up with my friend traveling up to Folsom at 6 a.m. yesterday morning. And we're talking about Patrick Marleau, and I'm saying he will definitely be moved by Toronto, but I just don't see him coming back to the Sharks this year. Cap-wise, it makes no sense. And I think that, sure, a year out, he might come back and whatnot. But you decided you moved on from Patrick Marleau, so why would you change it up so quickly and say, bring him back? And now here we are. Patrick Marleau is about to be bought out, and he's an unrestricted free agent. And now I love Patrick Marleau. He's one of my favorite players ever. But
yeah,
I have significant reservations about bringing him back this year. It's the whole regression thing with Vancouver and Philadelphia. Like, you've moved your organization on from Patrick Marleau. And if Patrick Marleau's not happy with playing third-line minutes in Toronto, what's going to make him happy about playing third or fourth-line minutes with San Jose?
Well, there's that too, and I think that like the one thing that I think just doesn't get discussed because obviously there's a lot of feels out in Sharks Twitter, and this is just your daily reminder. I hate all your favorite things. I hate your favorite players. I also hate anything that brings you joy in your life. Patrick Marleau had an abysmal season last year, And he has had bounce back seasons in the past. Yes, I've heard this argument many times. He has had bounce back seasons in the past. The problem is he's going to be 40 this year. Like, eventually, Father Time kicks in, and there's no bouncing back.
Look at Shane Doan. He put up 29 goals, and then the very next year was his last year because he couldn't hack it.
Right? I mean, this is a guy who put up 16 goals, 21 assists for 37 points. 37 points! That's brutal. And you're going to say, oh, well, he's probably playing with scrubs. Yes, he was playing with scrubs, according to Left Wing Lock. His most common, line mates that he played a lot with. Matthews, Kapanen, Kadri, Nylander, bunch of scrubs. Guys that just have no offensive talent whatsoever. This he was definitely playing with the Mike Browns and, insert other anchor that the Sharks have put on their third and fourth lines. It wasn't like he was devoid of playing with talent. And this is a guy that, Mike Babcock loves Patrick Marleau. So for that kind of production, I understand that he's not going to come back and sign for millions of dollars. It's going to be a low contract, but it's still going to have a no move clause.
Yeah.
You know it well. I don't, I'm hearing the argument that Patrick Marleau is still better than a lot of your younger players. Is he at 37 points with that kind of talent around him last year? Is he really that much better than, the kid in the system he's going to take the spot from? I love Patrick Marleau. Patrick Marleau, Mr. Shark, blah, 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 blah. The Sharks are going to do this for the wrong reasons, and I cannot wait until it happens. And then halfway through the season, when Patrick Marleau's playing like dog shit, and then everyone is going to be calling for blood. All these people are like, oh, it's going to be great. It's going to be fine. You guys don't know what you're talking about. I can't wait for all those people to be the ones that are like, oh my God, Doug Wilson brought this guy back, and I want blood.
Yep, exactly.
And that's what I'm going to wait for, and I'm just going to sit back and eat the popcorn and enjoy the hell out of it.
Yeah. Rob says, I'm paraphrasing, but he says, what if Patrick Marleau retires? And that thought has crossed my mind. Like, what if the Sharks don't bring Patrick Marleau back? Like, will he force himself out of the league by getting bought out by Carolina? Will anyone else take a flyer? Because Marleau obviously only wants to play for San Jose. He's said it outright. He only wants to play for San Jose. He doesn't want to play for Anaheim or LA even. Like, could he force himself out of the league?
I don't think so, because I think the Sharks are dumb enough to bring... Let me rephrase that. The Sharks will bring him back for the sole purpose of selling tickets.
Okay. That's fair.
Do you not think... Like, I don't think that Patrick Marleau is going to put all the butts back in the seats at SAP Center. But, his last run, people nostalgically, at least at first, might buy a ticket that maybe wouldn't before. I don't know. I'm not there. I can't speak to that. But I can see it from a marketing perspective. If it's going to cost you league minimum $1 million, from a marketing perspective, it's not a terrible move.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. Sleeping Mofo says, if he were to retire, for example, kind of a sad way for Marleau's career to end, but he kind of put himself in this position, and so did Toronto by offering him that contract.
Yes.
So, hey, better than the Sharks. We said when he signed his contract, don't blame Marleau for signing for the money that Toronto gave him. Don't blame him at all, but glad it wasn't the Sharks giving him that money.
Well, exactly. And that's another thing, too, right? Like, you think Thornton's not going to push for Marleau to come back? You don't think Thornton's going to be like, okay, you know what? Me and Marleau both take $1 million, or I'll be back for $1 million, and Marleau comes back for $1 million, too. You don't think that'll happen? I mean, the year he took his $8 million, he had 2 contracts in his hand and said, this is with Patrick Marleau, this is without.
Yeah, that's very true.
So I could see it happening. I just feel like it's going to happen for all the wrong reasons. And, hey, maybe he does have a bounce-back season, the 40-year-old. He proves me wrong. Great. I mean, I would be fine with that, too. But I just think at some point, Father Time comes a-calling. It comes calling for us all.
Yep. You mentioned they'd have to come back for, say, $1 million each. It might come down to that because, as Vince pointed out in the chat, Patrick Marleau, hey Doug, can I come back? Doug Wilson, I have $3 left. So, I mean, the cap is the issue.
Well, he's gonna make
Let's
his money. He
just
got bought out, so I mean, Patrick Marleau's gonna make his money.
we'd like to think that, but we also thought the same thing about Joe Thorne each of the last two contracts, and he made $8 million and $5 million. So we thought this is the year Joe Thorne finally takes his cost-friendly deal, and it didn't happen. So I'm concerned that they will still get their money, and we'll be in an even worse position. The Sharks will be in an even worse position cap-wise, but hopefully they recognize that this is their last run together. So
Again,
make it a cost-friendly
all the wrong
deal.
reasons.
All the wrong reasons, yeah. But I do like Patrick Marleau, though.
It's not like I dislike Patrick Marleau. It's just at some point, like, all
Yeah,
good things. All good
all
things.
good things. Hey, Justin Braun. I like
Braun,
Justin
all
Braun.
good things.
It was his time to go. It was time to go. So,
Sometimes you go before you have to go. Maybe that's going to be Brendan Dillon's tale. We'll say all good things that maybe shouldn't have ended.
yeah.
But, you know, it's going to be really, really interesting going forward. Obviously, there's still a lot to happen. The free agent talking is this week, so we'll see what happens. The buyout window ends on the 30th, I believe.
Yes.
So we might see a few more buyouts happen there. Obviously, the Patrick Marleau buyout will come official, and we'll see what the Sharks do after that.
Mm-hmm.
If I had to put money on it, I am 98% sure that Patrick Marleau is going to be in Teal next year.
Oh, I do too. That's what I meant about like what a difference a couple of hours made.
Yeah.
Because I went from, he'll be back one more year after that to, oh man, this is really happening. This trade really just happened.
So we'll see what happens. I mean, like I said, there's a lot of interesting things that are still going to happen that we don't know about. I mean, look it's going to be interesting to see how badly the Sharks grind down Timo Meier and Kevin Labanc. Because I think they're both especially now, they have to be ground down. Like, you can't really afford to pay them anymore. Yeah. So I don't know what AO, if Patrick Marleau does not want to play with the Carolina Hurricanes, I will use that as an indictment of the storm surge, and I will make sure that anyone who will listen to me hears that. It is an absolute indictment of the storm surge. Patrick Marleau does not like it. He thinks it's childish. He thinks that players, that good old Canadian boy shouldn't be skating around and jumping on the board. If that's
true, go put on a goofy ass red and blue and yellow suit, Patrick.
No, I don't know if that's true or not. I'm just being silly. I'm just being silly. I'm just trying to besmirch the good name of Patrick Marleau as best as I can.
All right. Well, I'm at Kevin Lacey 22. You will see me Friday at SAP Center for the Sharks Prospects scrimmage, which is always a lot of fun. I checked the weather forecast, and it should be right around 80 degrees. So I should be there in my turtleneck or whatnot. Either that, or I'm just going to wear a light Sharks jacket. Who knows? But I'll be there. You'll find me. I'll probably be the one screaming at a certain announcer calling everyone's names incorrectly. But hopefully it'll be Danny, though, and I'll be very happy because Danny's a good guy. Anyway, thanks for having me on, as always. And you'll see me Friday.
Absolutely. Yeah, go. If you see Kevin, go say hi to Kevin. I will not be there, obviously, as I am a border and 3 bajillion miles away. But we'll definitely... I'll talk to the guys and we'll figure out when we can do a show following the prospect scrimmage so we can give you some thoughts on some guys and go from there. I think
tell you Niazev's great. He's great.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
And it'll be interesting to see because I think some of the interest is going to be, guys that are there versus aren't there. So I think that's going to be interesting too. So until then, we will see you next week, hopefully. And if not, we'll see you very soon after that because free agency's right around the corner and the Sharks are certainly not done this incredibly weird offseason that they're about to enter. So I'm looking forward to talking about all of this going forward. Thank you guys for coming out tonight, and we will see you next time.